I shouldn't be telling this story. The NDA I signed could land me in prison if they discover I've shared what I know. Ironic, considering I spent the last 3 years working at one. My name is Rachel. Until last month, I was a cognitive rehabilitation specialist at Cedar Heights Correctional Facility, one of the first 7 prisons in the country to implement the Cognify protocol. You've probably seen the commercials by now. They're everywhere. Rehabilitation at the speed of thought. A revolutionary, humane approach that uses neural implants and AI to accelerate inmate reform. The technology promises to compress years of rehabilitation into mere minutes through immersive experiences. What you don't see in those glossy ads is the Nexus Behavioral Systems logo tucked discreetly at the bottom of the funding disclosures. The same company developing behavior optimization technologies for everything from corporate workforce management to military applications. Nexus Behavioral Systems wasn't just another tech firm. Publicly, they branded themselves as pioneers of cognitive wellness and productivity enhancement. But their classified contracts told a different story. Military-grade neural compliance research, predictive aggression models, and population-level social influence systems. Cognify wasn't a reform initiative. It was a prototype. The inmates were just data points in a much bigger experiment. The official process was simple, at least on paper. First, the inmates received a neural implant, a minimally invasive chip placed inside the brain. The stated purpose of the implant was to organize the new information from the therapy sessions into the correct memory areas and alter time perception, making minutes feel like years. Once the implant was active, they were placed into the Cognify pod, a VR unit that worked in conjunction with the chip to create an immersive rehabilitation scenario. These sessions were designed to simulate the inmates' crimes from their victims' perspectives, ensuring deep emotional impact. When they emerged, the chip would begin integrating the experience, reinforcing the behavioral changes, and restructuring their thought patterns. That was the official story. The truth was something else entirely. The glossy brochures and press releases paint such a perfect picture. Non-invasive brain implants, fully informed consent, and miracle transformations. Violent offenders emerging as gentle philosophers after just minutes rather than years, all through AI-generated simulations. The waiting lists growing as inmates volunteer, desperate to qualify. Our prison system transformed from punishment to true rehabilitation. I believed in it too, at first. That's why I took the job. They let us believe it was backed by decades of neuroscience, ethical oversight, everything airtight. I never suspected the data was being quietly redirected to defense partners. I had my psychology doctorate, specialized in correctional rehabilitation, and wanted to be part of something that could actually fix our broken system, something that worked. The day I met Thomas Mercer changed everything. Tom was subject number 347, a mid-level drug dealer convicted of manslaughter after a deal gone wrong. On paper, he was the ideal candidate. 31 years old, above average intelligence, no history of mental illness, violent but not pathologically so. The perfect rehabilitation success story waiting to happen. I remember our first meeting clearly. He swaggered into my office, all prison yard bravado, hiding his fear. "So you're the one who's gonna rewire my brain?" he asked, slouching in the chair across from my desk. "That's not exactly how I'd put it," I replied, pushing his file aside. I'm Dr. Evans. I'll be overseeing your participation in the Cognify program. Better than sitting in this hellhole for 12 years, he said with a shrug, and call me Tom. It's not a get out of jail free card, I told him. It's more complex than that, I said, going through my practiced explanation. The implant monitors neural activity and releases targeted neurotransmitters while you engage with immersive cognitive behavioral therapy scenarios. The AI analyzes your responses and adjusts in real time. He only had one real question. Will it hurt? I gave him the standard answer. The procedure is minimally invasive. The implant connects to specific regions of your brain, primarily those involved in memory formation, emotional processing, and empathy. You may experience headaches, disorientation, or vivid dreams during the first few weeks as your brain adjusts. The VR component will create immersive scenarios based on your offense, allowing you to experience the consequences of your actions from multiple perspectives, including your victims. What I didn't tell him was that some inmates experienced much worse. That information wasn't in the consent forms. I remember watching Tom's Cognify session from the control room. The treatment wing was a stark white space lined with 19 pods, each containing an inmate wearing the signature headset, a VR-like device with headphones and neural monitoring sensors. Tom was in pod 7. His vitals spiked almost immediately. I watched as his heart rate surged and sweat pooled beneath the headset. The pod sensors captured everything: heart rate, blood pressure, neural spikes. Fragmented visuals flickered across the control screen. The flash of fists, blood on concrete, a woman weeping over a body. I'd seen intense sessions before, but this was different. There was a rhythm to it. Like the simulation wasn't just showing him consequences, but actively guiding his emotional trajectory. 1 week after his session, Tom sat across from me again, rubbing his temples constantly. Headaches aren't getting better, he said, wincing as he shifted in his seat. And the dreams, man, they're intense. When I asked him to describe what happened after his treatment session, his eyes took on a distant look. That Cognify session, it changed everything. In just 15 minutes under that headset, I experienced what felt like years of consequences. I saw Kenny's death through his own eyes, felt the fear, the pain when my fists connected. I felt his bones break. Then suddenly I was his mother, identifying his body. Then I was his kid, growing up without a father. Years of suffering compressed into minutes. He looked down at his trembling hands. The problem is, the experience hasn't stopped. It's like the artificial memories they implanted have taken on a life of their own. I keep having these vivid dreams, these flashbacks, things that weren't part of the original session. I assured him this was normal, even a good sign. The Cognify system was presenting alternative scenarios to help him process his actions and their consequences. What wasn't in the manual was his next comment. Is that why I keep hearing the voice even when I'm awake? I froze mid-note. What voice, Tom? Like a woman's voice, really calm. Keeps asking me questions about how I feel about things. Thought it was part of the program. It wasn't supposed to be, not yet. The guidance component shouldn't have been active during waking hours until at least week 4. I told him I'd adjust his settings, but what I actually did was flag his case for review. The response from Cognify headquarters was troubling. Continue as planned. Accelerated integration is within acceptable parameters. It was around this time I started digging deeper into what Cognify really was. What Tom described, persistent voices, new thoughts intruding during waking hours, memory gaps, weren't isolated. A shared staff database, one my credentials somehow still accessed, had files no one had locked down. I don't know if it was carelessness or intentional, but I found internal memos from Nexus indicating the program's secondary phase, behavioral modulation. They weren't just creating empathy, they were creating control. The implant didn't just help process artificial memories, it was built to continually monitor and alter emotional responses, moral reasoning, even decision-making. And the more compliant a subject became, the less resistance the implant met. The system learned what made people obedient and began adjusting them toward optimal behavior, defined, of course, by whoever controlled the data. One document chilled me to the core. It referenced a partnership with a civic engagement research group, a euphemism for voter behavior analytics. The goal? Subtle influence, priming emotional reactions toward candidates, policies, and ideas, creating the illusion of free thought while nudging choices ever so slightly. It was all about scale. If it could work in inmates, it could work on employees, students, even voters. I even found a project proposal that embedded behavioral cues into digital content, social media posts, short-form videos, even horror narration stories and viral TikToks, designed to be processed subconsciously by anyone with an implant. The media would serve as reinforcement triggers, syncing with the chip to subtly adjust beliefs and responses, all without the viewer realizing. The session was only the beginning. The implant didn't shut off once he left the pod. It kept working, silently adjusting him every hour, every interaction, every decision. Tom's voice kept echoing in my head. It hasn't stopped. I started to realize it never would. Not for him. Not for any of us. 3 days later, they found him hanging in his cell. No note, no warning signs. Nothing in his behavior or our sessions had indicated suicidal ideation. But I later discovered something chilling. There was an 18-minute gap in the security footage from his cell block that night. Tom's cell was the only one on that tier with no backup camera. That wasn't an accident. That was a deletion. I've been having headaches lately. After Tom's death, we were all called in for psychological evaluations. Standard protocol, they said. During mine, the company psychologist offered me a quick neural wellness scan. Said it would help with stress. I remember the pinch of a needle, the headset lowering over my eyes. I didn't ask questions I normally would have. The whole session lasted 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. And since then, sometimes I think I hear a woman's voice, very calm, asking me how I feel about things. And sometimes, just sometimes, I can't remember parts of my day. But the worst part, some of what I know, I never looked for it. I didn't uncover it in a file or a server. It was just there, as if it had been placed into my mind. I know things shouldn't, things I don't remember learning. It's like someone wanted me to know, gave me just enough time to be unmonitored. Or worse, maybe the implant has been active in me this whole time, and I never even realized it. Maybe the strange moments I brushed off, pauses mid-sentence, dreams I can't quite recall, The sudden calm I feel when I start to panic aren't mine at all. Maybe the voice asking me how I feel isn't external anymore. Maybe it's me, echoing something that was inserted without my knowledge. I don't know when I stopped trusting my thoughts, but I do know I've started second-guessing which ones are really mine. If I suddenly stop posting, or if I suddenly change my mind about Cognify, you'll know why. And if you feel fine now, if you're reading this and feel untouched by any of it, maybe it's already working on you too. They're coming for all of us eventually. This is just the beginning. Don't forget to vote. This is Shaded Girl. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.